you said up the alley or right down the fairway for you guys?
Yeah, so I'm going to punt this to Jordan in light of the fact that he really came across this deal and other deals that he acquired personally. And I think that he can better speak to the attractiveness deal and the opportunity that it offers.
Perfect. Sounds good. And turn on your video just a little bit. It's because it's looping a little bit on your audio that you're speaking into. Just your speaker down, or put some speakers on. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah. So the Royal Pacific, it's a classic value add deal. So just quickly about Next Wave is we operate in a lot of states. We do deals in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Oregon, Washington, Texas. And so, all of these markets, are really strong markets. You've got really good growth, both as far as jobs and population. You've got attractive, sort of tax, relative to Texas and some of the South, you've got good property tax bases and rates. And they're relatively low risk on insurance. So these are good markets that we like, and we like all of them. And so within our markets, we're kind of market agnostic, and we're more deal driven. And so even though we think that Arizona is a fantastic market, it's been so competitive over the last couple of years that we haven't been finding the deals that we believe in. And so especially right now, we're fairly, consistent, really conservative in our deal underwriting. And we have a deal in Tacoma, maybe about a mile away, maybe less. I think it's actually 0.7 miles away. And Tacoma is a market that's got, extremely strong rents, even though some sections might not be the prettiest. We can see firsthand that there's tremendous demand for housing, and maybe due to the high minimum wage and people from Seattle being pushed south, the rents are just really strong. And so this deal came to us, and it came to us actually about, I think, 8 or 9 months ago at a substantially higher price, and we were quick to just say pass. We're not stretching for deals right now. And then it came back a couple months later, maybe $500,000 less, and we were like, still pass. And after they've made about $1 million haircut on it, I said, look, I'll dig in, but we were still low. And so this just happens to be one of those deals that sort of chased us. And we were like, there's a number where it's going to work. I don't think the seller's going to love it. But the seller has his own motivations to sell, and we do know firsthand how strong the market is, and there's a number that works for this deal, and they got to our number, and we're pretty excited about it.
Perfect. I want to point out a couple things, Jordan. So one,
yeah.
I love that the deal's chasing you, right? Which is great. It's a great show of faith, or show of testament for your track record to be patient and not to overpay for properties, especially 9-12 months ago when so many people were doing that. And you waited and you were patient and you stuck to the underwriting, and now they're coming back to you, right? Which is what we thought would happen. Yeah. We didn't know how quickly it would happen, but do you feel like it's happened quicker than you thought it would, or what's your take on the overall market right now?
My take on the overall market is this is a motivated seller, right? And I think that there's very few of them right now that are willing to take the market price. And so that's why you're not seeing a lot of velocity, right? You're seeing very few transactions, because a seller coming out now, you're coming out with a hope that they hit your price, or you're coming out realistic. And so this seller, he, when he made the final comeback to me and I finally decided to dig in, he was at a lower number, but he was motivated because he had found his up leg. And so now he's got a real deal, and he's real motivation. And even though I still was pretty far from his number, in relative terms, he was motivated enough to where he was willing to take my offer.
That makes sense. And I imagine he found an up leg that made sense more for him now than it did 9 months ago, right? So perhaps that's why he did get a higher price. And so with interest rates that are adjusting, he's able to make sense of that too. So that makes sense. David, anything you want to add or pull out of what Jordan just said right there?
No, I guess just commenting on the market in general, I agree with what Jordan said. Just to extrapolate a little bit, is we're seeing that across the board in all markets where there's still a disconnect between buyers and sellers. However, at the same time, we read in the news every week that there's more trouble in our market in terms of people defaulting on debt and get behind on their mortgage payments. Maybe they didn't buy down the cap rate to a level that was more palatable back, in early 22 or in 21. And so we think that those things will come to fruition over the next 6 to 12 months, and there'll be more opportunities to buy, and people will get realistic about where we're at in the, right now in the real estate cycle.
And talk about that for a second, because I think the stock market and real estate, some people have some fear or some just hesitation with what's going on. What kind of gives you guys, I guess, the certainty of conviction? I know that Jordan said you guys own in the area, right? Which is huge, right? When you already know the market, you're in the market, you've been in the market. So talking about that deal you've been in, how long you've been in it, how it's going, how you're able to turn that deal around. And then we'll share the screen. We actually dive into the deal specifics, but just talk about that, David, real fast, and/or Jordan.
Yeah, so the deal we got, we acquired it in July, and it was an exchange, and it just so happened it was kind of an interesting deal, and there was not at the time. It's weird how the world has changed. So one of the hair on the deal, why it sort of didn't go for a great price at the time, was because you had a loan assumption, right? So the loan assumption made it to where you can only put I think it was maybe 60% loan to value on it, but it was locked in for 10 years at 3%. So at the time that was a bad thing because people were really levering up, and so we got it to work, and we got this great 10-year fixed interest rate, which now is awesome. And that property is just performing really, really well. I mean, it's in Washington, right? And so we're in Washington as far as we've got properties in Vancouver, Washington, we've got properties in Spokane, Washington, and Washington is a blue state. And so consequently, evictions are slow, and we know that, right? Evictions are taking 4 months on average, sometimes as long as 6 months. So it's really, time consuming to get these done. But once you get them done, what we're doing is we're just sort of, because evictions take so long, if you have to extend 4 months of credit to a new resident, you got to have really high credit standards. And so consequently, we've got really high acceptance criteria for our new residents, our new applicants, and they're able to pay. And so consequently, the property, the first few months, completely full, but high delinquency. And now it's, we're turning the units and we're renting them as quickly as we turn them at our projected price. And it's been a really just strong market. People just, there's just not a lot of low pay, market, not a lot of apartments available at a reasonable rent. Everything is really high priced.
Awesome. So David, you want to share the screen now, or I know Jordan, or I can if you guys don't have access to that, and we can start actually going through the deal.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, perfect.
All right, you see that?
Absolutely. And then anyone has questions during this, you can just put it in the chat, and then we'll also open up for questions at the end. But go ahead, Jordan. You can take it away.
Okay, so this is a picture. The Royal Pacific One. It's right on Pacific Avenue, which is a fairly busy commercial corridor in Tacoma. And so like I said, it's a smaller deal. It's got a pretty good amount of deferred maintenance and a lot of lift that we can do as far as renovation, both from a exterior amenities as well as interior renovations. So next slide. A quick overview of the structure of our presentation. We'll try to get through a lot of this quickly because 40 slides is quite a bit. Okay. Here is a just quick overview of the asset. So it's 34 units. It's about a third studios, a third 1-beds, and a third 2-beds. It's 60s construction. It does have a pool and a pool area, community center. It also it's got a pretty large lot, and it goes behind it. There's some empty space. We don't plan to develop that space, but there is room if the next buyer wants to add units, as well as 8 garages they've been added since it was built, because they're substantially newer than 1962. Okay, so being that this is built in the 60s, it's in pretty good shape. That being said, we're gonna do a lot of work to the property. It's just your standard wood frame construction. It's got flat roofs. There you see a picture of the pool. Everything is completely untouched. So, the current owner is just operating it as is. He's not really reinvesting in it. He's not pushing rents. He's owned it for a decade. And so, we've got a real opportunity to take an asset that's kind of been neglected and really spend time upgrading it. It's located not too far from a big military base called Joint Base Lewis McChord, which was combined Army and Air Force base. And then, there's just a lot going on. There's, Port of Tacoma nearby, there's universities nearby, there's healthcare nearby. And then you're just getting, Tacoma does get just a lot of overflow from Seattle, right? It's about 30 miles south of Seattle. And so, the expense and the difficulty of actually living in Seattle pushes rents down to a sister city, a few minutes south. The opportunity is we're going to spend $1.15 million in improving it. That's both exterior amenities and interior renovations. We feel real comfortable. We've got great vendors that we've already worked with in place, and we've got good bids. And then there's also management upside, just because they're somewhat under renting it. They haven't implemented RUBS and other fees, and so there's just intense property management opportunity to improve the management as well.
Hey Jordan, I want to show you guys a few deals that you guys have done in the past. Some of your sold deals here. I don't know if you can see my screen, okay? And
Yep.
so I'm curious. You mentioned the '60s construction, right, with the flat roofs, and what you've been able to do with some other properties. That probably different vintages between '60s and '80s, maybe some '90s and 2000s. But is there one in particular on some of these deals that you've sold that you would say, yeah, it's most like what it's gonna look like on the exit? I'm curious.
That's a great question, because I do think we've improved as we've gotten more mature.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that it's probably most similar to maybe Park Station. That was a '60s one, so you're right there.
Park Station right here, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was
I
95
guess that was
units.
early '70s.
Acquired in July of 2018.
We'd like to, and that was kind of similar. It's got the flat roofs. We like to stick to sort of neutral colors, with grays and blues.
Mm-hmm.
They're really kind of, they're not going to offend anyone. But a new paint job really makes it attractive and brings the exterior.
And this is a pretty sweet turn here. You guys bought it for about almost 11, and you sold for about 15 and a half, and you did that in about 2 years.
Yeah, that was a great property. Again, it's similar where it's more of a sort of workforce neighborhood, and we did a quick turn. We did some heavy lift as far as deferred maintenance, and we did that, and we even sold in a pretty tough sell time, because that was in the middle of COVID before.
How much did you put into it on average? Would you say like $1 million into it, or?
I think we did about $1.5 million.
Okay. And it looks like you maybe did some stucco on the exterior, and then redid obviously the T111 siding and some of did you do dual pane windows from a single pane and do all that?
No, I think there were some windows that we didn't replace all of them. There were some that we had to replace. We did some stucco repair and siding repair, but it was already part stucco and part T of 111.
Okay. And obviously it's a different market in 2018, but even people were saying 2018, they thought the market was, oh, it's anytime it's gonna shift, right? It was kind of the thing. And you guys, held through and sold. So that's good. All right, back to the presentation. I just wanted to kind of see that. So you keep going, Jordan. You can share your screen again. If you have that, Jordan, you can share your screen. Yeah, you go. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm slow, okay?
That's fine. Let's make sure you got it. All good.
All right. Okay. I mean, this just kind of gives an overview. Also, in transparency, this was a portfolio deal. There was Royal Pacific 1, which is what we're talking about here. Royal Pacific 2, we are also buying, but that's got it's got one of our investors is a 1031 exchange investor, and he's investing the majority of that. So we're not really fundraising for that deal because it's kind of being raised separately. But this kind of just gives you can see here how there's quite a bit of land behind the Royal Pacific one that someone can choose to develop later, though it's not part of our business plan.
And part of that's just expensive to build. Jordan, what do you think? And the time that it takes to get all this stuff processed. And so what did you take on that?
Yeah. So I think it's a real opportunity, but we kind of stick to what we know. Mm-hmm. And we're value add multifamily investors. We're not ground up developers. Right. I think that would, it would just be a little bit outside of our expertise and our core competency. So
makes sense.
We're going to let somebody that knows it do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Brett, while you're on this slide, you can also see that, having those, both of those assets, almost next door to each other really allows us to maximize the efficiency of our, leasing and leasing agents, managers, and maintenance personnel. Mm-hmm. So that's a benefit to both properties.
Absolutely, it is. And you got the retail in the middle there for some walkability. Any decent retail there, or what's it going on there?
Yeah, it's new. I forget the tenants there, but the building is new and it's pretty nice. And then if you see the multifamily on the north and south, those are also new builds. So it's actually even though Tacoma is very spotty, there's some parts of Tacoma that aren't particularly nice. This particular block is actually pretty nice. And if you look at the residential across the street, it's single family home. They're well kept. And so it's kind of surrounded by pretty good stuff.
That's good to know. That's really important. All right. Excellent.
This is kind of investment highlights why we like the deal. So one, we're not very optimistic in our assumptions. Again, you kind of go to this deal chased us. I mean, we've got, just very low rent growth assumptions. We've got a terminal cap rate of 6%. We've got, pretty high economic vacancy in year one to account for, even though there's not a lot of delinquency, we just find that there's going to be a few evictions. So we wanted to make sure that we're projecting for that. We've also got good debt. We've got a Fannie Mae 5-year fixed debt. It's fixed at 5.5%. We think there's a chance that we can actually get lower than that. It's interest only for the whole period. And so it's 72% loan to value, but you add in the amount we're going to spend on CapEx, and it actually is I think 51 or 52% of the total cost. So we're low leverage, good interest rate, interest only, fixed for the.
By the way, I think this is important to mention. You guys have done so many units and had so many successful closes. I imagine you have some good relationship with the banks, and you're probably able to get a little bit better than what the I guess average retail investor or newer investor. Or talk about a little bit of that, David or Jordan, with the banking relationships.
Yeah, so the lender, this is the agency that we're going through. It's called Basis. We've done 3 other deals with Basis. They've been a great lender, and I know they do give us their best rates on this, and they're a good partner for us. And so it's true. We're able to lean on our track record. We've got great relationships on people that would do multiple transactions. We try not to even though we get calls every day with different brokers, we really try and be a relationship-driven company, and it works both ways. They get multiple business, and then we get better pricing. So it's a great loan that we got.
Perfect.
And
so talk about the upside here, Jordan. What do you think about the rents, or David?
David, you want to talk about it?
Sure. Like Jordan said, we've got a pretty extensive capital plan that we plan to, start right upon closing, which is towards the end of May. We think we can get $300 plus. Something says quite a bit more than that in light of loss to lease. And so we think that the rental upside is strong. And, also, as Jordan indicated, we've got properties in the market already, and we've already realized the rents that we're projecting at this property. So that makes it to where, we're a lot more comfortable in our valuation assumptions.
And by the way, rent control, any concern with that, and explain loss to lease, how you define that too for everybody.
Jordan, you want to talk about rent control?
Yeah. So first, loss to lease, that's just the difference between what you could rent a property for and what the lease in place is, right? So that's your loss due to the lease in place. And so right now, Washington does not have any rent control. Okay. So Oregon does, the city of Seattle does, but, California does. So, I think rent control nationwide is a topic in a lot of places. I know it's a topic in Nevada right now. And it's a topic that's come up before with Washington, and I think someone brought it up, and it didn't get voted on and got ignored. So it is a risk, but I don't see it as first. Hopefully we've got a lot of this done as quickly as possible, and we get the rents up in the first year before it's put in place. So it's always a risk, but in general, it's a risk that I don't think is as detrimental to a project as sort of what some people might say, because on one hand, it hurts your ability to push your rent too far, but on the other hand, the stricter, it also limits the amount of people leaving, so you end up getting less turnover. And when you get less turnover, there's tighter inventory. And so the new rents are actually higher because there's less turnover. So, we'll see, we'll deal. And then there's so many different flavors of rent control, right? I mean, right now, I think the state of Oregon's rent control is 7% plus CPI. So you're allowed to raise it 15% a year. Not too scary of a rent control. Mm-hmm. So it really, even the state of California, I think is like 5% plus CPI. So
right.
It's not as awful. There are bad ones out there. There's bad ones out there, but right. It's hard to worry about something when it could.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good context. Yeah, Seattle has it. Washington doesn't have it. Of course, California, Oregon do, but they have increases, and so you're looking at 300 as the average. And how much of the interior renovations may you have the breakdown in future slides, but that's a pretty good bump. How many leases are kind of month to month versus, going to take a while? What's the average tenant stay there? What's kind of your flavor for how many units are turning over in a given year?
So, I think we expect about 50% turnover per year, and we'll be renovating. But we stage the renovations to last this full 3 years. So I think we do about 2 a month, which is a good pace that we know our contractors can keep up with. And, it's something we're very achievable. If we beat it, we beat it. But, it's a good way that we stay occupied, we keep cash flowing, and then we just turn a couple a month and
perfect.
Rents.
That sounds great. Good.
All right. Next slide. All right. So, as you can see, we've got a fully, a large budget for both interior and exterior renovations. First, again, the nice thing about the state of Washington is it's got a high minimum wage and you get high rents. The bad thing about Washington is it's got a high minimum wage and it's very expensive. So we are spending a lot, right? We're spending, $16,000 on interior renovations, and this is for units that are fairly small. I think about 600 square feet per unit. So, but we know these are very realistic numbers. We've got bids on them. And then we're going to make sure that the exterior, we've addressed all the identified deferred maintenance, right? We've got budgets for roofs, parking lot, painting the exterior. We've got, the balconies, right? You got those long walkways. We're going to upgrade those. We're going to upgrade the guardrails. And then we just have a large budget for plumbing repairs because we've owned 60s properties before. And we know that even though there aren't current signs, there will be plumbing problems. So that's the nice thing about our experience. We've kind of lived it. And so we've budgeted for things that we know will happen even if they haven't shown up yet on a DD report. So here's the pro forma on our rent increases. So as you can see, we're on average, we're after renovation, we're going to be charging on average about $319 more. And again, we're highly confident on this because we're already in the marketplace. We're renting these units, and we're not getting any pushback. And we're getting, on a lot of the units that we're not even renovating, we're getting these rents. Bigger units or better in some ways, but we're highly confident of our execution on this.
Perfect.
And this kind of just gives you these are samples of what we're doing in other properties, right? So on the top here is pictures of the units as is, and then sort of pictures of what we do when we do a renovation.
Looks
brand
great.
new countertops, brand new cabinet doors, new appliances.
You do quartz or granite, or
brighten up the paint. We don't have budget for stone. We just do the synthetic. New counters, but not stone counters.
Okay.
Save about $500. So here's just the property features. It's pretty nice little property. Not a lot of 34 unit places have a pool. Not a lot of them have, a clubhouse, or a pool house. It's got in the back, it's got storage lockers, rentable garages, covered parking. So, it's a pretty fully amenitized building, which is not too common for a community of this size. But this one, has, the full amenities.
you think you can rent those garages? Obviously, you said rentable. How much do you think you can rent it for?
Yeah, so I think they're currently rented. But in Vancouver, we're renting garages for $100 a month.
Yeah.
In Spokane, we're renting for $100 a month. So I'm sure at a minimum we get $100 a month because Tacoma's a little bit more higher rent than those markets. So maybe $100, $125 a month.
Good.
So the Crosby and the Bing is our nearby properties, and this just shows you on a map how close they are to the Royal Pacific. So less than a mile, and we've got some really strong staff out there. It just kind of helps us share resources when we need to. We've got great maintenance, really strong senior manager who is going to help oversee these, and so just kind of leverage. First we get to leverage our presence already there, and two, we know this little pocket pretty well. So we have high confidence in our execution.
I think that's just huge. You really can't replace that. I mean, it's experience in the area and the immediate area, not even just Tacoma across, you're literally a half, or a mile, less than a mile away. I think that's just so crucial.
Really
and then the vendors and the experience and the projections and all the stuff you talked about for improvements or maintenance and management, that is so crucial to have the certainty of conviction of what you can actually underwrite to. So I think that's really great, Jordan and David.
Yeah. So here's basically the financial, high level. We're acquiring it for $4.2 million. We've got acquisition costs of $240,000. We've got prepaid tax and insurance, and then working capital of $130,000, and then we have got a $1.2 million renovation budget for an all-in price of $5.776 million. And so we're projecting this to be a 17.5% IRR to our LPs, 4.6 cash on cash. I know that's not super exciting, but year one is pretty low, and then year 2 and 3 are much higher. And that's just because it's so highly equitized. Going in, we've got a 5% cap rate. It's actually a little higher than that because I didn't really go through and adjust their T12, but their T12 had a lot of CapEx. Like they upgraded the electrical for like I think $10,000, and it's actually if you go through and their T12 a little better, I think it's more of a 5.5% cap rate from operationally. And then we got a yield on cost. So that's the cap rate year 3 based on our full 5.776 basis. So and the spread of 6.8 between the exit cap of 6 is sort of our profit. This is kind of a busy slide. So high level, we're taking we expect to take the income from 461 and the year before us buying it to 681. So a fairly large increase, almost a 50% increase in revenue from pre-acquisition to year 3. I would like to point out though that we didn't skip on expenses. We've got $2,000 a door in payroll, which is plenty for this market. We've got full expenses, so we didn't try and underwrite this with low expenses and come up with something. These are all numbers that we're extremely comfortable with and confident in, and so again, just kind of comes down to us feeling highly confident in our execution on this deal.
Excellent.
Guys, some of the notes to bring a highlight to that busy slide just previously, but we've got pretty high economic vacancy in year 1 of 14%, 10.5% in year 2, and that's higher than the way the property is currently operating at. But we just know that you take over these properties and maybe they are a little more forgiving than we are, and there's just usually people that need to be turned over. Our rent growth is substantially below Yardi matrices, and it's below even inflation. We're modeling that we're implementing RUBS, which they've actually in the last 2 months they've implemented. So we're just going to fully roll out the bill back of utilities. And then we're going to just capture other income. We tend to capture a good amount of other income for charging for parking and laundry and applications and pets and whatnot. And then on expenses, again, we went full, pretty comfortable numbers on all these expenses of $2,000 in payroll, $225 per unit in G&A, good leasing and marketing budget. Pretty good budget, it's like $950 for repair, maintenance, turnover, contracted services, and then utilities, trash, insurance, and property management fees are all based on actual.
Maybe jump to the investment structure there, Jordan, and kind of go through like what that looks like of the sponsor and the LPs. And there you
Sure. Go. Okay, so the investment structure right here. So we're raising $2.475 million, which is just under 90%. We just kind of round it off. We usually do a 90-10 structure, but we like round numbers. So we're looking for investments in $25,000 increments. Sponsors bringing in $286,988, which is 10.4%. The waterfall is, everybody is pro rata to an 8% IRR after everyone gets their money back, and an 8% IRR. Then there's a 25% promote to the sponsor, which is us, up until a 17%. And once everybody has a 17%, then our second tier is a 50% promote. Our fees is we're charging a 2% acquisition fee, We charge a 2% asset management fee. We charge a 3% property management fee. And we charge a 7% construction management fee. Since we don't hire a general contractor, we oversee all of the construction ourselves.
Perfect. So 90-10 and those different waterfalls as it hits. And is it, by the way, is this generally what you guys have done in the past for you guys' structure? Like on most deals
This is pretty standard. Yeah, I think this is what most of our deals look like.
Good. I think the next slide starts it pretty good too with the capital stack and the breakdown.
Yeah, so this is the capital stack. So it's 48% equity, 52% debt. So pretty low levered deal. The loan, again, pretty good loan, fixed for 5 years, interest only for 3 years, and it's just a 1-point origination fee. And after 3 years, it's a 1-point prepayment fee.
So do you have someone put like 100,000 in, Jordan? Maybe you can kind of walk through like what would that mean on the previous slide if projections were hit? What would that 100,000 be in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's back here. So, if you put in 100,000, you're basically, going to get back 160,000. Part of that $60,000 return, 4,500 of it per year. So I guess that would be, roughly 14,000 of it would be your monthly or quarterly distributions. And then the remainder would be on the reversion of sale.
Okay, so I put 100,000 in, and each year projected about 14,000 of cash flow. Is that right?
No, each year about 4,500.
Okay, 4,500 cash flow. Got it.
Years.
And then in 3 years, I get my 100 back plus another 160 or another 60.
No, like another 45.
Okay,
So
got it.
45 on the reversion and another 15, on the cash flow interim.
Okay, so 60,000 is kind of the return on my 100. It's just going to be broken down to on $4,500 per year times 3 is like 13,500. So I take 60,000 minus the 13. Got it. So about 45,000, right? I got you. It's 46,500 is approximate. So 100 in now, 4,500 every year for 3 years, and then an additional 45 at the exit.
Correct.
Got it. And that equals about, is that the 4.6% cash on cash? Is that what that is?
That's where I got that 4,500 per year. That's your cash on cash.
Right.
And the total IRR is a 17.5%.
Got it. 17.5%. Got it. All right. Makes sense. Thank you.
So, I mean, here's, and we can make this available to anybody that wants to, review this offline, but, we've basically have, apartments fairly close, which we've, toured. We've toured these deals. We know what they're renting for, and it's how we really know the market and that we can achieve these rents.
Good.
And sale comps, I mean, as you can see, this is, again, we didn't chase this deal, and this is the lowest price per door, lowest price per foot. I mean, it's just, the market, obviously, it should be, right? The market's not strong right now, and this is a deal that, really we let chase us. So we know we're going in at a good basis relative to the way things have transacted over the past couple of years.
Very good. Excellent. I think that pretty much wraps up. If there's anything else you want to share, and we can open up for questions, and David can add any thoughts he has, and people can go more through the slide deck. There's a whole deck. I think mention it. It's credit investors, right, David and Jordan?
Correct.
And so maybe talk about that accreditation, David, how that works in case someone's wondering, and then answer any kind of questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, we will, we work with a third party to verify accreditation status, and our this investment is open to accredited investors only, given the exception that we're qualifying this investment under. We have to accept only accredited investors. So, again, I guess we can talk more about that offline with prospective investors if they have questions, or we can do a follow-up call if needed.
Yeah, basically that means it's $1 million, total net worth, not excluding your home, or something around $200,000 to $300,000 in income per year, depending if you're single or married, and how you file. So you can look up accreditation there if you're curious. But yeah, you need to be an accredited investor in order to qualify for this investment. Anything else to add to that, David or Jordan, on the accreditation?
Nope.
Good. All right. What questions haven't we asked David or Jordan that you want to make sure that maybe you just pose it and then you guys answer it? Maybe Jordan to David or David to Jordan.
I would say timing. We're basically looking to wrap up our fundraise in about 3 weeks. I think we're closing in the end of May. So, anybody that's interested that's watching this, please reach out. We've raised a lot of it, but we still have room. So, if you have any interest, we'd love to hear from you. I would just say that, I think personally, a lot of people are kind of frozen right now because who knows, right? As David talked about earlier, right? There could be a wave of distress coming, right? Is now the time to jump in? I mean, there's those questions right now, and I know from I invested in 2008 and 2007 and 2009, 2010, and you never know where the bottom's going to be until after it's passed. And so, I see a very good argument that maybe prices go lower in 6 to 9 months, but you could have made that argument in 2010 and you would have missed, some really good deals. And so, our theory is when you have a good deal and you're underwriting appropriately, right? And by appropriately, I mean, you say, what do I think realistically is going to happen? And I think that we are not optimistic in this deal. You can be so conservative that any deal looks bad, but I think that, we've done a good job of controlling the variables because we know the market, we know the vendors, we've estimated the costs. I think that this deal will deliver. So, that's just my theory on it. We got this for a price that we feel really, really comfortable with. And then we got really good debt. And so, if for some reason things do go lower, we're going to be fine because we don't have any risk to interest rates changing, going up, going down. And we know that the thing's going to be worth more than it in 5 years than it is today.
Excellent. And I'm going to invite Barbara or Carmen or anyone else who wants to either put in the chat or unmute yourself. And you can ask questions live to David or Jordan. We're also streaming live on YouTube. And by the way, you can go to nwimulti.com to connect with Jordan or David. That's nwimulti, multi.com to connect with. And it's Jordan Fisher and it's David Sloan. You can also find them on LinkedIn, David Fisher, Jordan Sloan, NWI Multi, which is Next Wave Investors. So, David, you want to add anything else? Looks like no questions at this time. Any other comments or thoughts before we wrap it up?
Nope. Hopefully we'll be back to you in the future and we'll get better at this video conferencing stuff.
Yeah, no, you guys did great. It's our first time kind of doing this together. So no, I think you guys did fine. So great job. Thank you both. And we will everyone, this is live on YouTube right now, so you can check it out. And nwimulti.com if you have any questions or thoughts or interest. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.